For All Mankind, Season 4, Episode 6, Leningrad. Ladies and gentlemen, did I call it or did I call it? I will refer you back. It was either the first or the second episode of this season. I said that by the end of this season, they're gonna fucking strike on Mars. And the episode ends with a bunch of people on Mars chanting strike, 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 strike. We fucking did it. I fucking called it. We're getting workers' rights on Mars. We're there. I had a couple other predictions from last week, one of which was actually pointed out to me in comments that I was wrong on, so I'd like to address that. I predicted last week that they weren't going to address the fact that Kelly's son is coming to Mars and they wouldn't have a child-sized spacesuit for him, and they just weren't even going to address it. Now, in this episode, he's still in transit, so, we may or may not see him in the child-sized suit, but somebody did point out that in that episode, Kelly and her son did have a conversation about how one of his classmates had visited a moon hotel, which means space tourism, which also includes children going to the moon, which means you would have child-sized spacesuits. So I was wrong on that one, and it's because I forgot about that one line. So that's addressed. But the other thing was that because this episode is taking place largely in the USSR, because the M7 nations, M I'm pretty sure stands for Mars, but it's the nations that are involved in managing the Happy Valley base and all of the Mars exploration and expansion and the asteroid mining program. They're all meeting in the USSR to renegotiate terms because of Al Gore's kerfuffle last week when he said that he invented asteroids. But I predicted that because they were all going to the USSR and because Aleida was selected as Helios's delegate to the M7, that Aleida and Margot were going to run into each other. And, that was an easy one for me to get because narratively, of course, they were going to have that happen. Aleida digging into it is the whole reason Margot got found out as a traitor. And the episode does make you wait for it, but it is a very bittersweet reunion because, you expect Aleida to be just horrified and outraged to see Margot, who she thought was a traitor, but also she thought Margot died at the JSC bombing at the end of last season. And so to see her alive and well, she just hugs her and cries. Obviously, she feels betrayed about the whole thing. They have a very long conversation about all of it. And, Aleida's still not happy with Margot for good and sound reasons. Margot, did give secrets to the USSR. And Margot said none of the secrets she gave were dangerous, but she did give them a nuclear engine plan. Nuclear secrets are kind of a big thing. But ultimately, Margot revealed herself to Aleida because they're revising the plan to capture the asteroid, because the original plan is to bring the asteroid in orbit of Mars to mine, but they realized that would take $2 trillion in investment and they wouldn't start seeing return on investment for 40 years versus bringing the asteroid to Earth's orbit to mine, which takes a lot more initial upfront development, but they'll see more immediate ROI as they're able to mine iridium for Earth. But in order to get that to happen, because it's a plan that they came up with at the last minute at M7, Margot and Aleida needs to work together to solve the problem. So Margot is like, no, I'm revealing myself to you now because you're an engineer's engineer like me. You'll work with me because we need to solve the problem. And she's right. Margot's known Aleida for a very long time, and they work to solve the problem. They kind of yada yada what the actual solution is for getting the asteroids to Earth versus Mars, and they're never really quite clear on why it would be more difficult to get it to Earth than Mars. I assume probably just because of where Earth and Mars are in their current orbits. But it's not so the technical details, the sci-fi jargon or the technobabble. They do try to keep things mostly scientifically accurate on the show because it is, even though it's an alternate universe where they do have some advanced propulsion and cold fusion and stuff like that, they still try to keep things fairly scientifically accurate. And I think they were we'll just kind of yada yada that bit so that we don't have to come up with the science for it. Montana Schmidt-Hauer says, this is the Seggy, not for me at all, because I refuse to watch most things, so the amount of one season of a shows I care about is at like one, and that's Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I might watch Scott Pilgrim Takes Off at some point, but that's fine. I'm talking about For All Mankind because I need everyone to watch this show. And with that out of the way, that's the main stuff that happened on Earth. Is that Margot reveals herself to Aleida, and then because she reveals herself to Aleida, she also has to come out publicly because she's been going on under assumed name in the USSR because she's been presumed dead, and she announces that she defected from the USA to the USSR, and the speech that she gives to announce her defection has obviously been prepared by the USSR, and so like she's going to talk about she defected because the USA was more interested in profit than science and all this stuff. It was very propagandistic to, play up the Marxist-Leninist way of life, right? Which it's expected, and you can tell that she doesn't believe what she's saying. She's just saying it because it's what needs to be done because she does work for Roscosmos now. But also, I predicted at the beginning of the season that she was going to end up running Roscosmos, and at this point, she's not running the whole thing, but she is basically running their asteroid capture program, which is a huge part of Roscosmos now. So she's moving her way up. She may be running the thing by the end of the season yet. 2 says this show is some of the best alternate fiction timeline out there. Yes, it is such a good alt history thing. I mean, really, all I have to do is point out that Al Gore is president, and he, instead of taking credit for the internet, took credit for discovering an asteroid, and they were able to take that jokey reference and make it like a pivotal point that changes relations between all of the nations that are developing space travel just because of a jokey reference to something Al Gore was mocked for in real life. They were able to take that and make it a pivotal plot point. But yeah, let's go to Mars because we've got all of the Earthbound stuff going on. Ed Baldwin, now that he has been fired as XO of the base and grounded, he's basically just spending all day smoking pot. Oh yeah, by the way, I don't think I brought this up before, but as part of treating the tremor in his hand, he has been smoking pot. He's been growing pot on Mars because Wayne sent him some buds or some seeds some years back. Now, I don't think we're ever going to see Wayne again, but Wayne was the best friend of Ed's ex-wife, Karen. Kelly's his daughter, but Karen was best friends with Wayne, who was married to one of the astronauts, Molly Cobb. And like I said, I'm sad that we're probably never going to see him again because the characters that he was, tied to are dead now. But he's probably my favorite character on the show. He's in the first 3 seasons. He is, you might call him a beta male, but he has such a healthy relationship with his psychological needs and the ways that he has anxieties, a lot of anxieties because his wife's an astronaut and that's a very dangerous field, but he's able to, work through those anxieties in good ways. Back in the 70s when you didn't talk about your feelings and it's seen as weird and inappropriate for him to express those anxieties out loud, but he's always working through them, and he's just such a great character. I can't do him enough justice here. You need to watch the show, and when Wayne shows up, just know that you're gonna love him to death. He's a big cuddly man, and he is the originator of the strain of weed that's growing on Mars now. Which apparently it's doing pretty well on Mars. I mean, obviously it's not growing on the surface or anything like that. Ed's got his own little closet that he's growing it in, but it's doing pretty well on Mars. So, and that's another thing that's because Ed doesn't really have much to do because he's fired, and he's not on a return flight yet because those only come every 6 weeks, I think. He ends up finding the speakeasy on the base, and at first Ilya, who runs the speakeasy and the rest of the black market on the base, he's very concerned that here comes Admiral Baldwin knocking down his door, but he's like, come on, man. I have been on battleships, on dinghies, moon bases, and space stations. You think I can't sniff out a still? I have found every still on every base I've ever been in. Pour me a drink. And once he drinks from the still, he's able actually to identify. He's like, you need to change this filter to that because it's got a little bit of a cinnamon mouse ass flavor. And he gives him a whole bunch of advice, and the guy's like, Ilya's like, oh, you get to drink free here because you're helping me out with my still, and also because, he doesn't want him to rat him out. But Ed's kind of bitter at Helios and everything right now because, he's basically fired, except he's not fired, because he was removed as XO of the base by NASA, but he is still a project manager for Helios, and he actually gets some paperwork that they want him to rubber stamp, but he's like, no, I've still got this job. I might as well actually look over the paperwork, which pisses off the new Helios XO. But Ed finds out that they are changing the bonus structure for the Helios employees. There's like a point system where I think under the old, I don't know exactly how you earn the points, but they say under the old point system, the first payout threshold is at 500 points and you get $20,000, but the new payout threshold is the first payout is at 5,000 points and you only get $5,000. And even though they signed contracts, Helios hit it in the fine print that they can modify their contract at any point. And Ed walks in to a unionization meeting that Samantha's running. And I said, I was pretty sure she was going to be the one to run it. And she had been talking to some AFL-CIO reps back on Earth, and she's getting a bunch of people together. And here comes Ed Baldwin walking through the door. Twice in this episode, you see him come through the door. You're like, oh, he's going to fuck things up. But no, here he comes. He's like, I've read all of this shit. You guys are getting fucked. You need to stick it to them. So we're getting a Mars Union. It's going to be glorious. We've got, I think, 2 more episodes this season, so we're going to see where that goes. And I should have left off with that. I should have saved that for the last, but there's one other plot thread, and that's to do with the black market. Because once Ilya finds out that Miles has been selling the obsidian, the red obsidian, back to Earth after Ilya told him not to, he cuts him out of the whole operation, which Miles is not very happy about at all, because he was making a ton of money doing that, and now he's not. But because Miles had basically opened up a new market for the black market by reaching out to the North Korean base, he just goes to the North Koreans and says, look, I know you asked us to help smuggle your wife here, but Ilya had no intention of ever doing that. I thought he was going to, but he told me no, he was just stringing you along for your business. And so Miles now has the North Koreans as muscle for him, and they go and they beat up one of Ilya's other workers, and they tell Ilya that they're running the show now on the base. So the black market is getting some turf wars on Mars. We're seeing a bit of that too. It should be fun. It's a fun show. We got 2 more episodes this season. I'm looking forward to them. Actually, wait, is it 2 more or 4 more? I gotta double check. 10 episodes, so we got 4 more. Oh man, we got a lot more coming. Anyway, go watch this show. It's a delight, and they're unionized. Hey, thanks for watching. Your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific and Sundays at 2 p.m., so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons, with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone friend tier patron Pistol Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.